Punchline was quieter than usual that night, the usual buzz of nervous energy replaced by a heavy stillness that seemed to settle over the crooked wooden tables and threadbare red curtains. Outside, the neon signs sputtered and flickered like a dying heartbeat, casting patchy pools of blue and pink light onto the cracked sidewalk. Inside the cramped back room, Max Harper sat hunched over a battered notebook, his pen scratching furiously against the page. The words felt elusive tonight, slipping away just as he caught them, as if the weight of tomorrow's showcase pressed down on his very bones. Max's gaze flicked up to the grimy window, where the hazy glow of street lamps cut through the early evening mist. His fingers tightened around the pen, his mind a jumble of jokes, fears, and memories. He thought about his family, their disappointed voices echoing in his head, and the promise he'd made to himself to prove that this ragtag comedy club was more than just a rundown relic. It was home, it was hope, and it was the last thing standing between him and giving up. A sudden burst of laughter from the hallway startled him, and the door creaked open. Jenna Lee bounced in, her short curly hair a riot of curls escaping her colorful headband, eyes bright with a mix of nerves and excitement. "Max, you look like you're about to wrestle a bear," she teased, grinning as she plopped down on the chipped wooden chair across from him. Max offered a sardonic smile. "Maybe I am. Tomorrow's the big night, Jenna. If this doesn't work, I don't know what will." Jenna waved a hand dismissively. "We've got this. Besides, what's the worst that could happen? We bomb and go down in flames. That's comedy gold in itself." Max laughed, a short sardonic burst that betrayed his tension. "You always know how to make me feel better." Before Jenna could reply, the door opened again, and Eliot Brooks appeared, his tall, lean frame silhouetted in the dim light. His usual simple tee and jeans looked a little worse for wear, and a faint shadow of exhaustion clung to his face. Yet beneath that, there was a flicker of something softer, maybe hope, or relief at being among friends who understood the weight he carried. "You two plotting world domination without me." Eliot's voice was dry, the hint of a smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. Jenna perked up. "Never. We're just trying to keep Max from turning into a nervous wreck." Eliot chuckled, taking a seat beside them. "Well, good luck with that." The three of them sat in companionable silence for a moment, the hum of the city filtering through the cracked window. Then Maya Sanchez appeared, her short bob neatly framing her face, glasses perched on her nose. She carried a clipboard and moved with the efficiency of someone used to juggling chaos. "I've updated the schedule," Maya said, tapping the clipboard. "Sound checks at 5, dress rehearsal at 7. We need everyone sharp. Tony's already setting up the stage." Tony Russo's voice came from the doorway, a loud, boisterous greeting that broke the tension like a clap of thunder. "You hear that? Time to make some noise." The group smiled, the warmth of their shared purpose momentarily pushing back the shadows of doubt. Later, as the night deepened, the comedians gathered in the green room, a cramped space clotted with costume racks, empty coffee cups, and half-eaten sandwiches. Jenna leaned against the wall, her colorful outfit a bright contrast to the peeling paint, while Eliot sat on the edge of a worn couch, arms folded. "You really think this'll work?" Eliot asked quietly, his voice low. Jenna met his gaze steadily. "It has to. We're all in this together." Eliot nodded slowly. "I guess it's time to stop running from the past and face what's coming." The moment was interrupted by a sharp knock on the door. Maya stepped in, her face serious. Victor Crane was seen near the club earlier. "He's not going away." A hush fell over the room. Max clenched his fists. "Then we give him a show he can't ignore." Outside, under the flickering glow of the neon, a sleek black car idled. Victor Crane stepped out, his cold eyes scanning the familiar facade, the sharp lines of his suit a stark contrast to the club's faded charm. He paused, a smirk playing on his lips, before disappearing into the city's shadows. Back inside, the troupe gathered for a final round of preparations. Nervous laughter mingled with whispered encouragements as they reminded each other why they fought so hard, not just for the punchline, but for the dreams and friendships that had survived so much. Max looked around at his friends, his heart pounding. Tomorrow was more than just a showcase. It was their stand against the darkness, threatening to swallow their world whole. And so, with hope flickering like that fragile neon sign, they braced themselves for whatever the night would bring, ready to face it together. But as the clock ticked closer to midnight, an unspoken question hung in the air. Could laughter truly be enough to save them all? The night stretched on, the city's restless energy seeping into every corner of the punchline. Each comedian wrestled with their own thoughts, memories of past failures, dreams deferred, the fragile bonds that held them together. Yet beneath the uncertainty, a quiet strength grew, fueled by shared laughter and the stubborn refusal to give up. Max found himself outside for a moment, the cool night air a bomb against his racing mind. He looked up at the flickering sign, its intermittent glow a reflection of his own wavering confidence. A voice beside him made him jump. "You gonna be okay?" Jenna asked, her tone softer than usual. He nodded, managing a small smile. "As long as we all show up tomorrow, yeah." She smiled back, the tension easing from her shoulders. "Then let's make sure we do." Together, they turned back inside, ready to face the dawn and whatever challenges it might bring. For tomorrow, the punchline would not just be a club. It would be a beacon, a testament to the resilience of friendship, the power of humor, and the unyielding pursuit of dreams. And in that, perhaps, lay the true heart of their fight. The night was far from over, and the real test was yet to come. The anticipation in the air was palpable as the crowd filed into the punchline, an eager buzz threading through the dimly lit room. The mismatched chairs creaked under the weight of expectation, while the flickering neon sign outside cast an uneven glow through the grimy windows, a silent witness to the night's significance. Inside, the smell of stale beer mingled with the faint trace of burnt coffee, a scent that had come to define the club's charming imperfection. Backstage, the troupe moved with a mixture of nervous energy and practiced routine. Max Harper adjusted the collar of his worn leather jacket, his fingers trembling slightly despite the sardonic grin he wore as armor. Jenna Lee paced in her colorful outfit, her short curls bouncing with each step, her laughter a little too loud to mask the tension building beneath her bright eyes. Eliot Brooks leaned against the wall, arms crossed, his tall, lean frame almost blending into the shadows, a cigarette smoldering between his fingers despite Maya's earlier protests. Maya Sanchez hovered nearby, clipboard in hand, eyes darting between the performers and the technical crew. 5 minutes till showtime, she announced, voice calm but firm, trying to knit the fraying nerves into something manageable. Tony Russo, in his usual backwards baseball cap, bounced on the balls of his feet, his stocky frame radiating restless energy. The first act was a newcomer, a jittery comic whose nervousness was almost contagious. As he took the stage, the microphone emitted a harsh crackling, followed by a sputtering feedback that cut into the silence like a knife. The spotlight flickered, wavering uncertainly, a metaphor not lost on anyone watching. The audience shifted uncomfortably, the tension thickening like fog. Max watched from the wings, jaw clenched. This was their moment, fragile as it was, and already the night threatened to unravel. He caught Jenna's eye. She forced a smile, but the tightness around her mouth betrayed her concern. When Jenna finally took the stage, she launched into her set with the usual effervescent charm, weaving personal anecdotes with sharp observations that coaxed laughter from the crowd. But backstage, the atmosphere was anything but light. Eliot, simmering with unspoken frustration, muttered under his breath about the club's direction and Jenna's rising prominence. Their simmering tension boiled over just as Jenna was delivering a punchline. A sharp exchange of words echoed from behind the curtain, voices rising in volume and intensity. Maya's eyes widened as she realized what was unfolding. Tony stepped closer, ready to intervene if necessary. Suddenly, Jenna stormed offstage mid-set, her voice carrying over the speakers as she addressed the audience directly, exposing the backstage strife in a moment of raw honesty that stunned everyone. Eliot responded with a sarcastic retort, the two trading barbs in a public spectacle that threatened to derail the entire showcase. The audience's laughter turned nervous, the fragile joy of the night cracking under the weight of real conflict. Max pushed his way onto the stage, the spotlights catching the determined set of his jaw. Clearing his throat, he launched into an impromptu routine, his wit sharp and self-deprecating, drawing the room back from the brink of discomfort. "Well," he quipped, "if we can survive that, maybe this club really is magical or cursed. Either way, you're stuck with us tonight." Laughter rippled through the crowd, genuine and healing. Behind the scenes, Maya and Tony worked frantically to resolve the technical issues, their hands flying over mixers and cables, their faces tight with concentration. The troupe regrouped, the earlier fissures still visible but momentarily patched by Max's quick thinking and humor. As the night wore on, the performers found their rhythm, their shared passion momentarily outweighing the fractures beneath. But the public clash between Jenna and Eliot lingered in the air, a reminder of the fragile balance they walked between friendship and ambition. Max's sardonic laugh echoed in his mind as he scribbled new jokes in his battered notebook later that night. The punchline was far from saved, the road ahead uncertain and fraught with challenges. Yet in that chaotic, shambolic showcase, they had glimpsed the resilience that bound them, a laughter that could not be silenced, even in darkness. The night ended not with triumphant applause, but with a cautious hope, a fragile promise whispered in the flickering lights and the lingering echoes of shared laughter. The question remained, could they hold together long enough to fight another day? And more pressingly, would the next act be their last? As Max glanced at the faint glow of dawn creeping through the grimy windows, he knew one thing for certain: the real show was just beginning. The backstage room smelled of stale beer and sweat, a faint undercurrent of desperation lingering like the low hum of a dying neon light. Folding chairs were scattered unevenly, some occupied, others askew like the fractured state of the troupe. The chaos of the opening moments of the showcase still echoed faintly in their minds. Technical failures, a public feud, laughter that felt hollow rather than healing. Max sat hunched over, fingers nervously tracing the edges of his battered notebook. The weight of what had just happened pressed down on him, heavier than any spotlight. Around him, Jenna sat with her knees drawn close, her colorful outfit dulled by the grime of sweat and frustration. Eliot leaned against the wall, arms crossed, face unreadable but tight with unspoken emotions. Maya was pacing quietly, glasses perched on her nose, eyes flicking between each member of the troupe. Tony shuffled his baseball cap tighter on his head, a nervous energy radiating from his stocky frame. So, Maya finally broke the silence, her voice steady but soft. "This is where we are. Not where we wanted to be, but here." Max looked up, meeting her gaze. "Yeah, Not exactly the night we dreamed of, huh? Jenna laughed, a short, brittle sound. Dreams feel pretty far away right now. Eliot's dry voice cut through the tension, farther than ever. The room fell quiet again. Max opened his notebook, flipping through pages of scribbled jokes and half-formed ideas. Maybe we're trying too hard to fix things all at once, he murmured. Maybe we need to just remember why we started. Jenna nodded slowly. I think I lost sight of that tonight. I got so caught up in proving myself, in all the noise, that I forgot why I love this. Eliot let out a rare, humorless chuckle. Love comedy. I thought you were just here to keep the peace. Maybe I was, Jenna admitted, but it's more than that. It's who I am. Max closed his notebook and leaned forward. Me too. I've been so afraid of failing, I pushed everyone away. But this group, this club, it's family. Maya stopped pacing and looked at each of them. I've been risking everything to keep this place open. I'm scared, but I believe in you all. And I believe in the punchline. Tony stood, cracking his knuckles. I may be the butt of the jokes sometimes, but I'm not going anywhere. We're stronger than one bad night. Slowly, the atmosphere shifted. Hurt gave way to hope. Frustration softened into determination. They weren't perfect, and the road ahead was uncertain, but their bond frayed but unbroken was a lifeline. So, Max said with a half smile, "What's next?" Jenna grinned, her eyes bright despite the fatigue. "We get back up. We make them laugh." Eliot cracked a genuine smile, the first in hours. "And this time, we do it together." The backstage room, once a place of shadows, now felt like a small sanctuary. The punchline's neon flicker outside might still waver, but inside, a new light was beginning to burn. It wasn't the perfect performance, but it was theirs, imperfect, raw, and full of promise. As they stood and prepared to face the uncertain night ahead, the laughter that waited beyond the curtains felt a little closer, a little more real. And for the first time in a long while, the comedians believed they could pick up the pieces and rebuild not just the club, but themselves. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. But as the hum of the city seeped through the cracked walls, none of them could shake the looming question: could their newfound unity withstand the pressure of what was still to come? The night was far from over, and the real test was just beginning. The punchline's worn curtains drew back with a gentle rustle, revealing the stage bathed in a warm amber glow that softened the worn edges of the battered venue. The wooden floor creaked familiarly beneath the feet of the troupe as they stepped into the spotlight, the weight of the moment settling over them in a tangible hush. The packed room held its breath, friends, strangers, and loyal regulars alike, all drawn by the promise of laughter, hope, and perhaps a glimpse of something more. Max Harper was the first to step forward, his leather jacket hanging loosely from his frame. There was a flicker of hesitation in his eyes, an unusual vulnerability that had been carefully guarded for so long. The usual sardonic edge to his voice softened as he began, weaving a story not just of jokes and punchlines, but of personal failures and the scars they left behind. His voice cracked briefly as he recounted a moment from his past, the room shifting from fits of laughter to a quiet empathy that wrapped around him like a warm blanket. The laughter returned, richer and more sincere, buoyed by the honesty that underscored each joke. Jenna Lee followed, her presence a burst of color on the dim stage. Her short curly hair caught the light as she animatedly shared tales of identity, belonging, and the complicated dance of chasing dreams while honoring one's roots. Her jokes were sharp and witty, but her delivery carried a tender undercurrent that resonated deeply with the crowd. She laughed easily, inviting the audience into her world, her energy infectious. Each punchline landed with a warmth that felt like an embrace, and the applause that followed was both thunderous and genuine. Eliot Brooks took the stage last, his tall, lean frame almost blending into the shadows at first. His deadpan delivery was a familiar landscape, but tonight there was a subtle shift, a hint of softness beneath the sarcasm. He spoke candidly about failure, burnout, and the fragile process of rebuilding oneself from the rubble. The audience leaned in, hanging on each carefully measured word, their laughter mingling with moments of reflective silence. As he closed his set, the cheers that erupted were not just for the jokes, but for the courage it took to share such truths. Backstage, Maya Sanchez watched with a quiet smile, her heart swelling with pride. The sacrifices she'd made, the battles she'd fought behind the scenes, all led to this moment of collective triumph. Tony Russo paced nervously, his usual boisterous energy tempered by the weight of the night. But even he found himself caught up in the magic unfolding on stage, his usual jokes tinged with a newfound sincerity. Together, the troupe had transformed the fragile threads of their individual stories into a tapestry of resilience and hope. The Punchline was more than a club. It was a sanctuary where dreams were chased, friendships forged, and laughter became a lifeline. As the final applause echoed through the room, the comedians took their bows, their faces illuminated by the glow of shared victory and the uncertain promise of tomorrow. The future of the Punchline remained unclear, but tonight, the power of their united voice had carved a space for hope to grow. Max caught Jenna's eye and smiled, a silent acknowledgement passing between them, a promise to keep fighting, to keep laughing together. Eliot exhaled, the weight on his shoulders lightened by the unspoken bond that now held them tight. Outside, the city lights twinkled against the night sky, indifferent yet somehow hopeful. Inside the Punchline, laughter lingered in the air, a beacon against the darkness. And as the comedians left the stage, the echo of their final act carried with it a question hanging softly in the air. Could this night be the beginning of something new? The answer, like the city itself, was waiting to be written. The air backstage was thick with a cocktail of sweat, stale beer, and something softer, something like relief. The aftermath of the showcase left the Punchline drenched in a silence that was both heavy and healing. Max Harper slumped against the peeling brick wall, his leather jacket crumpled around him like the night's tension. His dark hair was tousled, sweat dampened, and his usual sardonic laugh was subdued, replaced by the quiet sound of deep breaths. Across the cramped room, Jenna Lee sat perched on the edge of an overturned crate, her colorful outfit a sharp contrast to the dingy surroundings. Her short curls shimmered under the flickering fluorescent light as she bit her lip, eyes scanning the faces of their troupe. Eliot Brooks leaned against a battered wooden table, arms crossed, his usual dry expression softened by exhaustion. The smoke haze from his cigarette lingered faintly, mingling with the scent of spilled beer and cigarette ash. Maya Sanchez hovered near the bar, her short bob tucked behind one ear as she methodically counted the night's takings. Her glasses caught the dim light, reflecting the tired but unwavering gaze that had kept this club afloat. Tony Russo, baseball cap worn backwards as always, was perched on a stool, cracking a rare joke that drew a few reluctant smiles, breaking through the emotional fatigue. The night had been a messy, chaotic jumble of technical failures and raw nerves, but somehow, through the cracks, the heart of the Punchline had bled bright. Their final act had stitched together the frayed edges of the group, weaving humor and vulnerability into a fragile tapestry of hope. Max's eyes drifted toward the small window that gave a view of the flickering neon sign outside. The familiar glow was uneven, the sign sputtering like a heartbeat struggling to stay alive. In his jacket pocket, the eviction notice from Victor Crane's legal team felt heavier than the night's exhaustion. It was a cold reminder that their battle was far from over. "We did it," Jenna whispered, breaking the silence. Her voice was soft but firm, a thread of optimism weaving through the fatigue. "We showed them who we are." Eliot let out a dry chuckle, the sound carrying a hint of disbelief. "Whoever them is, they're not going anywhere. Not yet, anyway." Max glanced up, meeting Eliot's tired eyes. "It's not over. Victor's not just going to roll over." Maya stepped forward, placing a reassuring hand on Max's shoulder. "We knew that from the start. But look around. This crew. We're stronger than we think." Tony nodded emphatically. "Yeah, and next time, I'm bringing the pies. No more bomb sets on my watch." Laughter rippled through the room, light and unexpected, a bomb over the night's raw edges. Later, as the crowd thinned and the club settled into a quiet hum, Jenna found herself alone with Eliot near the empty stage. The tension between them, raw and unresolved, seemed to pulse in the dim light. "Look," Jenna began hesitantly, "about tonight." Eliot interrupted with a sardonic smile. "You mean the bit where I almost punched you?" She sighed, then laughed softly. "Something like that? I guess I'm sorry. For everything." He shrugged, eyes glinting with something unreadable. "Me too. Maybe we're better off as rivals than enemies." Their handshake was tentative, a silent truce forged in the quiet aftermath. It was fragile like the future of the Punchline itself, but it was a start. Outside, Max lingered under the neon glow, the eviction notice crumpled in his hand. The city's noises swirled around him, distant sirens, the murmur of late-night traffic, laughter spilling from a nearby bar. Somewhere in the chaos, the Punchline lived on, a stubborn flicker of light in the sprawling city. He thought of the club's battered walls, the countless jokes scribbled in his battered notebook, the friends who had become family. It wasn't just a building. It was a beacon for their dreams, a stage for their truths. "We fight," he muttered to himself. "For the laughs, for the love, for the life that this place gives us." And somewhere deep inside, beneath the cynicism and fear, a spark of hope kindled. The battle was not won, but the war for the Punchline's soul had only just begun. As dawn crept over the city skyline, the troupe gathered one last time in the dim light, their laughter echoing into the uncertain future of promise that no matter what came next, they would face it together. The Punchline might flicker, falter, and fade, but as long as they held on to their humor and each other, the night would always end with laughter. The Punchline's neon sign flickered uncertainly against the early hours of the night, its pale glow a stubborn heartbeat in the relentless pulse of New York City. Inside, the familiar scent of stale beer mingled with the sharp tense of sweat and anticipation. The club, though battered and worn, hummed with a quiet energy that was both fragile and fierce. Tonight was not just another show. It was a testament to gathering of souls bound by laughter and dreams that refused to die. Max Harper adjusted the microphone stand, his fingers tracing the worn leather of his jacket as if drawing strength from its familiar weight. The room was dim, the amber stage lights casting long shadows that danced softly along the cracked walls. Faces filled the seats and regulars, others newcomers drawn by the buzz of a final night. A last chance to witness the heartbeat of a place many had called home. He stepped forward, the creak of the wooden floor beneath his feet a grounding rhythm. Max's voice cut through the murmurs, warm and steady, carrying a joke that was equal parts humor and heart. Laughter rippled through the room, not loud or boisterous, but genuine, an embrace across the small space that felt like a promise. This was their sanctuary, their battleground, their family. Backstage, Jenna Lee paced slowly, her colorful outfit a bright contrast to the muted backstage walls. Her breath caught in her throat as she watched Eliot Brooks settle into a quiet corner, his lean frame hunched in contemplative stillness. The tension that once defined their rivalry had softened, replaced by an unspoken understanding. Jenna smiled to herself, the weight of past conflicts lifting as she caught Eliot's eye. A small nod, a shared smile, simple gestures that spoke volumes. Meanwhile, Maya Sanchez sat at the manager's table near the bar, her short bob framing her face as she counted the meager cash in the register. The numbers were tight, the future uncertain, but her eyes gleamed with fierce determination. Nearby, Tony Russo, stocky and jovial, launched into an impromptu dance, eliciting chuckles that filled the room with warmth. In that moment, the imperfections of the night, the flickering lights, the creaky floorboards, the strained finances felt less like obstacles and more like parts of a story still being written. As the night deepened, the performances unfolded like chapters in a shared memoir. Max's set wove humor with vulnerability, each punchline a bridge between past regrets and future hopes. Jenna's act sparkled with the optimism that had always defined her, tempered now with a newfound confidence that came from surviving heartbreak and hardship. Eliot's deadpan delivery held a quiet joy, a rediscovered love for the craft that had once seemed lost. The audience responded with laughter and applause, a chorus of support that buoyed the performers' spirits. The air was thick with the bittersweet taste of what was and what could be, a delicate balance between celebration and farewell. Outside, the city breathed around them, indifferent yet alive. As midnight approached, the troupe gathered beneath the flickering neon sign, its light casting playful shadows on their faces. They raised cheap beer bottles in a toast, their laughter weaving into the night like a defiant anthem. "To the punchline," Max said, voice steady, eyes shining. "To us. To whatever comes next." Jenna grinned, the weight of the journey pressing lightly on her shoulders. "We may not know the future, but we have each other, and that's enough for now." Eliot nodded, the cynicism softened into quiet hope. "As long as there's laughter, there's life." Maya's smile was tired but genuine. "And as long as we're together, this place will never truly die." Tony lifted his bottle higher. "Here's to midnight laughter, may it echo forever." The night stretched on, filled with stories, jokes, and the unspoken promise that no matter what storms the future held, they would face them together. The punchline stood not just as a building, but as a bikini testament to resilience, friendship, and the healing power of humor. As the city's heartbeat slowed toward dawn, the comedians parted ways, carrying with them the warmth of shared dreams and the strength of a bond forged in laughter. The neon sign flickered once more, steadying as if breathing with them. The future was uncertain, but the fight, their fight, was far from over. And somewhere in the quiet, a new joke was waiting to be told.